Right. Okay, we'll get started. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our GDSC workshop. So today we're going to learn about back-end development. Has anyone here heard of front-end, back-end development before? All right. You guys are kind of familiar with what it means, I guess. So I guess front-end, what would a front-end be? UI. So yeah, I could draw not a perfect square, but we can call it a client, right? A user. That's what we see on the screen. So let's call it a user, client. And this would be like, I don't know, if you're on Amazon.com, this is like the website that you see. And so anyone know what a backend would be called? Yeah, I heard server. So this would be a backend server right here. And somehow we need to get from the client to talk to the server because the server has a database that stores all the information. So I can draw a database right here. It's kind of how we draw it right here. I'll call it DB for database. And so let's say we're using Amazon.com. We have a website, right? User goes to the store and adds something to the cart and makes an order. Without a server and only a front end, Amazon.com will just be a website where you can infinitely click on add to cart and buy and enter your credit card information and nothing will happen. You won't get your order. That's why we have a server, so that the data that the user sends, like cart information, payment information, it can all go to the database and it's stored over here. Therefore, the database, whenever Amazon.com wants to fulfill those requests, they can go to the database, look for that user. Where do I want to ship the user's products that they ordered? And it can go back. So we call this, from a client to a server, we call it a request. The user is requesting for resources, right? And the server will interact with the database. It will say, fetch me this information, or store this information, delete this information. That's how the server interacts with the database. And so after the server gets that information from the database, the server will send a response back to the user. With our same example of Amazon, when you order an item, put your payment information and say submit order, you'll get a page that says, oh, your order has been submitted, and you'll get your product in, I don't know, if you have Prime, 2 days, if you don't, maybe longer. And so this is kind of how an client-server architecture would work. And so this would be implemented using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But today we'll be focusing on this section right here, server-side development. So we'll be creating a server on our laptops using Python, and we'll create a simple course, I guess, model. So in our database, we'll store courses, and we'll create a server that allows you to edit the database filled with courses. And so we'll go ahead and get started with that. So let me go ahead and share the screen. Okay. All right. So today we're gonna create a REST API. REST is I guess it's like a principle. It stands for representational state transfer, and it's pretty popular, the APIs. So you can read all about this in your free time because people like reading, so you can read that. And there's more information right here on Red Hat. And you can read about what's an API, how two computers talk to each other, right? And REST is a set of architectural constraints, not a protocol or a standard. And yeah, we'll implement this, and you guys can read on the details because I don't want to. But yes, what used for? So REST. So everything has an API, right? Like a computer programs talks to each other. So REST is more like I guess, standards, like rules that you have when those clients and servers talk to each other. For example, you can read right here, like they have a criteria, right? You need a client server architecture, not like I guess distributed system is something else. Like there's different types of architectures on how computers talk to each other. And so REST is one of the ways that client server architectures can talk to each other. And um, there's more information about resources. I myself have to do more reading on this part, but yeah, you can definitely look up what is a REST API and get into more details. But I'll be showing more of how to implement those kind of things today. Yes. Um, I will post it in the Discord after if you don't need it immediately, right? Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, we'll go ahead with that. And so what I'm going to use today is I'm going to use the course catalog as a resource for us in defining our models. So I'm going to go to, it's a little small. So I think a good way to start is on the backend part of architecture is building a model, a database model. How is our data going to be stored in the database? And so if I look at a course right here, let's go with the first class, first CUCS. What are some things that are important that we need to store in a database if we're going to store all these courses in there? Like what are some attributes that you find? Pardon? Yeah, but what about the course itself? Do I need to store it? Like, yeah. 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 See, you can, I guess today we can go with department, right? A number is good, title, units. We'll be a little chill today and we won't worry about the grades, right? Let's not worry about grades today. So yeah, maybe a description, like we're gonna store these things in a database. And let's think of our development in the perspective as the administration of the university. Because I mean, sometimes I know you guys probably want to delete a course or sometimes, but we don't have that. We don't have that access, but the administration has the ability to delete, edit, create new courses. And so let's think of ourselves as university administration. So, and we'll get started with the development. So let's open our laptops and start a new Python project. You can use VS Code, you can use PyCharm. I don't know what else is there, but yeah, you guys can open anything. So let's create a new project. And so we want to start, well, my ID creates a main.py file for me, but I'm going to delete that because we don't really need that. And so if you have a different ID that does not create a virtual environment, let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to actually increase my font size first so everyone can see. And we probably want the lights off too. I'll get that. So, okay, I'll go one more. Let's go 18. Okay. So yeah. So if you need to create a virtual environment, I know that on Mac, you do Python. Actually, you do Python 3. You do this to create a virtual environment. I believe that on Windows, it is this command. Oh, it thinks the same on Windows. Wait, Ben, is it this on Windows, right? Yeah. So it's the same. Yeah, okay. So everyone create your virtual environment. Okay, is everyone kind of good on that or? Okay, everyone's good in the virtual environment part? So, well, I mean, I'm already on it, so I don't want to do it again, but Python 3. Yeah. Linux, I think it's fine. Yeah, you can use Python 3. Yeah, that's because I haven't set my base interpreter. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you couldn't also just pip install on, you don't need it, I guess, virtual environment. It's nice. It's a good practice to have it, but it will still work without it. You'll just be installing it on your actual like computer. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good important thing that I missed out. Yeah, if you don't have Python, yeah, you might want to install that because it is an advanced Python workshop, but it's fine. Yeah. 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 And we'll also record this session so that you can follow up later. So yeah, so I'm gonna move on because I don't want to waste too much time on the not so fun stuff. And so after you set up your virtual environment, you want to activate your virtual environment. So on Mac, it's this, and on Windows, what is it? This. Okay, I'm gonna post the Windows on like that. That will be on Windows. So try to activate that. And so, oh yeah, and the VNV for Windows, you don't actually type in that. You want to type in your like the name of that virtual environment directory. Would I type on the second line? So don't type Windows. I'm just saying that this is for Windows. You want to type, I mean, if you ran this command, the name should be VNV. So you can just, yeah, let's just do that. I'll make it simple. So let's type in that. Okay. Right. I don't want to take too much time in the more logistic stuff. So I'm going to move on in a few moments. Okay. All right. Oh, I'll do that. All right. And I'm going to start off with, let's make a run.py file in the under our project directory. And that's going to be the file that runs our project or our server, our app. And I'm going to create a directory called app. And that's our app. So let me see. Yeah, these are all on the same level. The VNV, app, and run.py are all on the same level. And let's start off with not trying to make the whole project in one go. Let's kind of start simple, making a simple Flask app. So what I want to do is before I start, with our virtual environment activated, we want to install the required libraries. So let's pip install Flask, Flask SQL Alchemy. So this is for our database. Sorry, I need a reference. I wish I had another monitor, but it's not the case right now. And this last one, Flask RESTful. So let's run that. Oh, I didn't want it like that. This right here. So we're installing what we need for this project using pip install in our virtual environment. So when you run this project without the virtual environment, you'll get an error because you're not installing it technically on your actual machine. You're installing it in the virtual environment. Okay. And now with that installed, let's create our first app. So I want to create a Python file. Let's call it init.py. Use double underscores before init and after. And this is going to make our directory a module. And yeah, double underscore init, double underscore .py. And this is inside app, yes. So let's create our app. So I'm gonna take from Flask. Let's see what I need. From Flask, import Flask. So lowercase from Flask, import Flask. And we want to create our app. So I'm gonna create a function called create app. And this is going to create, create app. Wait, sorry. Let me use my phone as another monitor, I guess. Oh no, it's fine. I have it on my yeah, thanks. So yeah, let's create the app now. So app is equal to Flask, then the name. And so we create the app like this, and then we're gonna create a route. So this is our base route. We're just gonna try to display something on our screen with this server just as a sample to know that our app is working as we want it to. So I'm gonna call it Hello World because computer scientists like to use Hello World for every testing or in their intro courses. I'll make it a little, I guess, new and put an exclamation mark. So I'm a little different from other people. And we're gonna return the app. Okay. Oh. And so we're gonna call this function in the run.py file. And that will create this Flask app. And when we go to the route, it will display hello world. So and I'll move on based on the number of, or like the sound of typing as it goes away. What is that error? Oh, that's not a, what does it say? Yeah, to create a virtual environment. So I guess here, can I? Did you do the pip install version? It's because I think the interpreter is not working. There's no interpreter. I just downloaded it from their website and then I dragged it into applications and this. So the Python interpreter is not set up right now, I think. That's the issue. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an issue with Python. Yeah, I think you have to install Python first. Is that like should I go on python.com or something? Yeah, yeah, you don't have Python installed. Yeah, there's no Python. You have to install Python first. Yeah, Python. There's a website for Python. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on because I don't want to. We only have an hour, so I want to get as much content done. So we have our app created, and we're gonna use run.py. And from app, so from this app directory, let's import create app function that we created. And I'm gonna initialize app as create app using our Flask app that we created. And if name, so if this is a file that's being run, then I want to app.run and debug equals to true. So for dev purposes, we're gonna set debug to true. And that's saying that when we update our Python files, like such as our models or routes, the web page that we're displaying to will also update with that as well. Then, if you followed along properly, this should work. I'm gonna use Python 3, Windows, just do Python, run.py, and I get some text, some good text. Although it's red, it's good because it says that it's running on this server. So I'm gonna click on this and you're gonna see some magic happen. Hello world. So we made that with an exclamation mark to make it a little different, a little spice to it. But yeah, so this is a very simple app, right? This is something that took us like 5-10 minutes to do. And by the end of this workshop, we want to display our courses that we can add, delete, update on this page right here. And so to get along with that, we need to go back and make stuff a little bit more complex because we're pretty good at doing that kind of stuff. So let's go back to here. Is everyone good with this? Okay, I'm taking that as silence is a good thing. No problems. That's a good thing. You need this what? Yeah, we're kind of building on top of it, but Jordan, could you post the GitHub repos in the Discord? Yeah, we'll post the GitHub repos on the Discord right now so that if you're behind, you can kind of copy from that. Okay. It'll be on the Discord if you're, oh, you could, yeah. Yeah. Okay. You can figure out a way, but yeah, let's move on. And now we have a web page displayed with hello world. We want to start initialize our database now. So you saw that we installed Flask SQL Alchemy. So SQL Alchemy allows us to interact with the database with Python code instead of actually having to write like SQL scripts. And so if I go to init.py, let us use that SQL Alchemy library. So I'm going to use SQL library or SQL Alchemy and import SQL Alchemy. And I'm going to initialize the database, create a new database. And it's good practice to use your constants in a variable instead of actually declaring it. So let's call it courses.db because we want to store all those courses in there. And in our create app function, we want to set up an config for our app. This is required for the SQL Alchemy. SQL Alchemy URI. And this will say SQLite. So we're using SQLite, but we're using SQL Alchemy to interact with it. And let's use DB name like that. Oh. And we will initialize the app. Yeah, we'll initialize the database within the app. And let's see. What else do I need? Yeah, let's do that first. And then we'll create our models for our courses. All right. So let's create another Python file in the app directory, and let's call it models. For this workshop, we'll only have one model, but in the future, you may have like relationships between models, such as there'll be like a department and then courses, maybe like instructors. And there's just so much. You can make it like pretty much infinite with all these database models. But for now, let's keep it simple and only go with course. So from app, I want to import DB. And that DB refers to this right here. It's not something that's coming from a library. We created it. And let's create a class called course. So this is going to represent what our course will look like in the database. And it's going to be a child of the model of the SQL Alchemy library. And yeah, you guys name it. What should be in our course model as title? Yeah, we can call that title. I'll just list it out for now. Anything, what else would we need? Number, department, okay. And what else? Professor. We will, because professors require like relationships, we will actually skip out on that one. But other stuff was like units, number of units, and description. Yeah, I'll just call it desk, or like desk with a C, I guess, because I don't really want to type that out. But yeah, let's settle with these 5 fields. And so each of these fields is going to represent a column in our course table. And so I guess this is a 323 database fundamentals type of question, but what would uniquely identify our course? Yep. So these two would uniquely define our course, because you can't have 2 courses in the same department, the same number. Like we can't have 2 CCS 174s because it just doesn't make sense. It's hard to identify it. And so we're going to use these 2 as a primary key. And so let's define our column for department. So we're going to use db.column, and this will be a string. And I do not think I've seen any department with like a abbreviation more than like 5 letters. So let's just settle with 5 as our max. And we will set the primary key argument to true. So we're saying that department will be a string with a max length of 5, and it will be a primary key. Same thing with number. We can use db.column db, but this time it'll be an integer because it's just a number, right? And we'll also say that primary key is equal to true. And so the primary key will be in the order of department first and then number, and there will be a composite key, a combination of both. And let's say title is also a column, and we can give it more characters. So let's say 100. Don't know how long course names can be, but we'll also put nullable as false, because I feel like it's good to always give a course a title. I don't think there should be a blank course title because you don't know what it is. So let's say nullable is false. And units will also be a integer, and nullable is false because I think it's good to keep a track of number of units for admin purposes. And last but not least, description is also a column, but instead of string I don't want to create a string and just spam my 0 button until like dies, but I want to use a text. So this will be a body of text. And a good practice when you use models in SQL Alchemy is to redefine this method that's built into Python. And what this is pretty much like the toString method in Java, where when you print out the course, it's saying, how do you want the course to be displayed? Or otherwise, it would just be either like a string of memory address or what kind of item it is. And so we want to redefine that. You want to give it a clear, I guess, representation as a string. What course is this when I read it as a human being? And so we're going to return. So let's say, I think a good representation is displaying department, number, and a title, because I know what that course is. Like if I say CCS 174, Introduction to Programming, you know what it is, compared to just displaying a description. I have to read all that, and I don't know what it is. So let's go with department. Let's go with number, and then maybe a dash to kind of separate it. And we're using self because it's part of the class. So there you go. And so we declared our model. So this is our model that we're going to use for the rest of our workshop. And we're not going to touch this file anymore. So guys, we'll go with that. All right. So with this model, now we want to create the database, right? So we want to set up that table, that courses table. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the create app where we initialize the database, and we're going to create it. So let's create another function because we like to modularize our code instead of one big block. Let's call it create database with a parameter as our app that we created over here. And so I was actually running into an error as I was preparing this with something about app context. So we're going to use this with statement. And I also have not really looked into it that deeply. I was just trying to figure out the error to kind of get it working. So can't tell you much about this, but yeah, we'll use this to resolve that error so we don't have to do any debugging today. And we'll create the app or the database. We'll create the database. And so what db.createAll does is it creates all the tables. So our only table is a course table, so it will just create that for today. But if you have other models, it will create all of them at once. And just so that I know that our database was created, let's do this. Let's say db name created, so that in our terminal, when you run this app, it will show that our database was created. And I'm going to create database. I'm going to call this function that we created in the app. And it should be able to create it now. Okay, and so I'm going to run it again. And this time, because we initialized and created a database, it should show, I mean, I guess I kind of spoiled it right here, but it should show courses.db was created. And boom, there you go, courses.db was created. And if you go back to our project, you can look to instance, and then it'll have a courses.db file that was created. And you can know that it worked. We created a database. And so now what we can do, let me show you something we can do with the database. So Flask provides a terminal. We call it Flask shell. So you can type in Flask shell and it should be able to go into a shell environment where you can run Python commands. And there are multiple things we can do with database. So let me see. Let's run some commands, Python commands using SQL Alchemy to show that our database is working as we want it to. So let's go from app, import DB. Oh, that's not the right spelling. From app, import DB. And let's also import our model object so that we can initialize. So let's import course, right? And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a course object. We use CCS 174 as a example, and let's create the course. So department CCS, the number will be 174. Name will be, let's call it just intro. Yeah, I'll just call it intro. Keep it simple. Units will be 3. And the short description, Python. Something simple like that. Oh, it's because I put name instead of title because that's what I named it in my example. But there we go. Now it works. My heart dropped for a second, but we're good now. So yeah, let's create our course object. And when I type in course, you can see that it says CCS 174 intro. And that's the same format that we had in the models where it says the represent method says department number dash title. And so it's printing out as we want it to. So so this method works. And so let's try adding this course into our database. And so let's go db.session add. So this is adding it to the session, and then we want to commit that session into the database. And then the session.commit. Then insert no such table course. Man, it's tough. Let's see what we did wrong. Wait. Let's see. Did I initialize something wrong? No such table course. Here, let me open up another terminal. I'm just gonna do some debugging right now. Okay, courses.db was created. This session was okay, let me redo this. From app, import db from app. Sorry about that. I don't know what's wrong with my code right now. db .sql courses.db .name SQLite db.init app. Is this what's wrong? I don't think this would change anything. Import models, import course. Oh, I guess it worked. Okay, so I'm not sure why it did that, but so I guess you need to import the model. You need to import course as a model in your create app. And yeah, I'm not sure why actually, but I guess it just works like that. And so we'll go with that reasoning right now. It just works. So yeah, so we committed it, right? And I want to check if it's in the database. And so I can do course.query.all. So courses are model that we created, and we're going to query all of them. And you can see that it's in there now. Our course is in there. And so, yeah, let's go with that. And yeah, and so now we did that. We also mentioned about the methods that we can do to a database. We can post, that's also known as creating something in a database, put, which is like modifying, and deleting, which is just deleting from the database. So those are four methods that we're going to implement today. And so when an API works, we had a hello world route right here that's had no parameters in the end, like URL path. It was just our local host. But we want to create paths for our API. So courses is one API or one API endpoint, and course with the department and a course number is also another. Let me share my other one ID. So we want to implement these API routes where courses is you can get all courses. Simply put, you can create a course. This endpoint will allow you to get a single course, edit a single course, or delete a course. And department will be like the abbreviation that we use, CCS, and number is the course number 174. And so we're going to implement these right now. And so let's go back and let's use the other library that we installed via pip. It was called Flask RESTful. And we're going to import the API class. And that'll help us create the API so that we don't have to manually do it. And so let's create the API, initialize the API. We can pass an app through that. And yeah, let's go with that. And then we'll create another file in our app directory called, let's call it resources.py. So we'll do the API first. And so from Flask RESTful, we're going to import a few libraries that will be helpful. So import resource, abort function, fields, marshal width, and reparse. So yeah, let's do that. And we also want to import our DB from our app because we want to manipulate the database using our routes. And so DB will be useful for that. We also want to import course because we want to also do the same thing, use these two for manipulating the database. So let's create a class courses resource and make that as a child of the resource using inheritance. And let's start with getting all the resources that we have, getting all the courses that we created. So we're gonna use this decorator marshal width. This is to form like the response that you get from API. So actually, wait, no, you have to define those first then. So resource fields, we're going to call these. So this is pretty much going to be the same thing as the model that we created, except in form of a dictionary. So I'm just going to speed through these real quick because we already kind of defined these fields. So fields.string, units, fields.integer, and desk. Okay, let's do that. And so we can pass in resource fields that we defined before our function as a decorator, so that when we call the get request method, it will return everything in this format, so it's easy to read. And so let's call get. So we're overriding it pretty much because it's a resource. And then we're going to return. So in our terminal, remember that we also used course.query.all, and that returned all of the courses. And we're going to do the same here, just course.query.all. And our HTTP status code will be 200, saying that 200s, anything in the 200s is symbolizing like it's a success. It's a good thing. We like 200s. You know that if you go to a weird web page, it might say like 404 error that like we don't know what you found, like where you're going. That's 400s is usually not a good thing on your end. 500 is saying there's something on their end, the server's end. And so, yes. And let's actually try this. Let's actually test this out before we move on to other routes. And so let's go back into init before we can actually fully test it out. We want to import the resource that we made. So from resources, import courses resource, and api.add resource, courses resource, and then our endpoint will be courses. So when we go to localhost /courses, it should return all the courses that we created. And so, yeah, just these two lines up here. And okay. Okay. Okay, I don't know what happened. All right. So I know that this error is due to a version error that was fixed. So here, give me a second. Pip install. So let's do this. Let's resolve this error, and this is how we can resolve it in one way we can resolve it. You can create a requirements.txt file, and this is gonna state all the requirements that we need. And so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna define all the requirements that we need and their version number. So Flask, RESTful. So I believe that 0.3.9 is when they fixed it, and so we shouldn't be getting that error anymore. And SQL Alchemy. So yeah, you can just do that, and it should, and then you can pip install requirements.txt. And it should install it. Okay, why is it giving me this error now? Reparse, is this right? Let me just check if I made a mistake. Oh, it's because it wasn't even the right name. That's a good thing to do. You should always put the right variable name. So it's not reparse, it's recparse. I missed the Q over there. And so I think it should be fine, even if you don't run that. And it should work. There you go. There we go. So simple, silly mistakes can lead to big errors. And so is it working on everyone's? Yeah, kinda. No? Oh, okay. Oh, you got lost? Oh, okay. Am I going too fast? Oh, sorry. Oh, well, it's all recorded and the repo will be online, but okay, maybe I'll just show you what it's supposed to do because we got 10 minutes. So, okay, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. Okay, so I'll provide all the stuff, but let's just see what it's supposed to do. All right. So this is what I have finished. This is the finished product. And so what I did over here, like the rest of the workshop will just be creating the routes. So this is a get request, getting all the courses. This is post. And so what I have over here is that a request is made with what the parameters of the course, like what title, what number, name, units, description, and that request is going to be made to this endpoint, and it's going to create the course. So this function creates a course, right? There's another resource where it's only a single course. The other one was all the courses, and so this was getting a single one. This is editing. Put means editing. So we're going to edit the course, but not the primary keys. We don't want to change the primary keys because that's how you uniquely identify a single course. And this one's deleting a course. So you can kind of read the code and see if you can make sense of that. And so I'll show you what it's supposed to do. And so let's run this. And it works. And so I go to 5,000. Yep, that's right. And you get the hello world without the exclamation mark because I didn't put that in my original project. But let's go to courses. Let's see what courses will do. And I just have, this is JSON, a list of JSON objects. And it looks pretty boring, right? It's like, why would I ever need this? Why would I ever want to just look at black HTML text on a white background? But again, this is not a front end development workshop, right? This is a back end. We're not like, what if you go to like, I don't know, a popular like Facebook and you just see profiles that are just black text? Like no one wants to see that, right? So in this workshop, we're focusing on the data manipulation part. And so what I can do right here is I have this app called Postman. It's very helpful to visualize. If you can use Terminal too, but people like to see something. And so we can use Postman, and this will, you can get the same thing. So you get, this is the get request, and you're getting everything. I can also make a post request. I can create a new course. And so I don't know how to enlarge the size of the font, but okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so let's create a new course. I populated it with like just the lower divs and some math courses. And so let's populate it with, what is this? I think it's Calc 2, another calculus course. That's my description because I'm not unique. And let's put, it's 4 units. And then let's send it. Let's send the request to our server that we created. And we get a response with that server. And then let's go back, get all the requests again. And boom. Now it's in our database. We know that it's in our database. And let's finally, let's also use the manipulating a single course. And so I want to get one course. So let's get the one that we just created. The endpoint is course department name / number. And so math / 123, you get one course, right? And what about if I want to edit a course? I change the put method. Let's change the description because I kind of want it to be more, I guess, better. So I'm gonna add 3 exclamation marks because it's right here. Oh, there's a question. Yes. How did I do what? Yeah, yeah. Oh, what's the code that made it happen like that? Oh, okay. So if you go to init, I added another resource and it says string department. So this is symbolizing it's a variable. It's not an actual like physical. I don't type in string :department. I type in the department, I type in the name, and then it searches the database for all the or it should be a single course that has the department name and the number. So this is the part of the code does it, but it's from the API. It's from the Flask RESTful library. Yeah. And so so I'm gonna update this, another calculus course, and we don't need that. We just need to, I'm just gonna update just the last part. So I can just enter one attribute to edit it and it'll still work. And we get a difference, and let's see if it actually changed in our database. Let's get it again. Oh, and then we see it. So we changed it and we stored it. And I don't like this course anymore. I'm a bad student. I don't like this course. I'm gonna delete it. I don't want to take this class, you know? Like, let's delete this class from our database. And let's delete it. And I guess there's no response. And let's try to fetch it again. Will it show? Oh, course with this number in this department does not exist. So we successfully deleted it. And so you may wonder, like, yeah, like I see like just text on white background. Like, why do I need this? And here's a key. You can connect it to a front end app. You can manipulate the database using server side, and you can display the data, connect it to a front end, and display it on a web page. And so I made a simple front end to do the same thing, to the thing we want it to do. And so I'm using VS Code, and it's just extension called Live Server. It's pretty nice to use. So I don't have, yeah, you can just open the HTML page, and let's see if this works. And okay, my front end is not the best, but it displays the data. It displays the data, and it does its job. And so these are the courses that are in a database. And let's try updating or creating a new course again in the database. So let's create a course. Dang, why did I delete it? Okay, yeah, let's do that. So we're gonna, the math department found out that I deleted the course, and they're like, dang, you can't just delete courses like this, you know, like you gotta put it back. And so they're asking me to put it back in the database. And so let's create it again. I don't want to create it, but they're asking me to create it. So create it. Seems like it's created. And then if it was successfully created in the database, the front end should reflect that too. Let's refresh the page. Boom, it's on the bottom. And so you can definitely make this prettier. You can make like a pretty web page with data, but this is pretty much the basics of backend development, how to manipulate data, create a server, and create endpoints that allow you to manipulate the data. And maybe if in the future we can learn how to make a better web page with better styling. And so, yeah, that was it. We'll post the resources in the Discord, and we'll also post a recording in there. And then, yeah, thank you for coming.